Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am starting now the lecture number 18 with you, and today we are going to discuss again the text of Hamlet. And as we did earlier, that there is a situation of Polonius and Laertes advising Ophelia not to take Hamlet's words very seriously. So here again you will realize that later on these prophecies, these wordings become true because Hamlet will feign a madness, and he will act as if he is mad because he will be able to discuss things about the death and killing of King Hamlet. So rightly said by Polonius and by Laertes that Ophelia should not take a lot of concern of Hamlet's words, because his wordings, his fidelity, his love may change any time. So we will see that they come to reality because that is the truth which Polonius and Laertes have suspected. So scene 4, the platform. Enter Hamlet, Horatio and Marcellus. We remember from last time that they decided to witness the ghost of Hamlet, and now Prince Hamlet is there, and he says that okay, I will take the advantage of trying to talk to the ghost. Hamlet: the air bites shrewdly, it is very cold. Now the concept of cold, because the attitudes of the people have also become cold. He is continuously thinking about his mother, who has not wasted any time in marrying another man, and that arouses suspicion and doubt and unhappiness in Hamlet's mind. So things are cold. It is actually cold because it is winter time, and it is cold within and cold without. So again I would take you back to King Lear. When he goes on to the storm, he says that the storm is within and a storm is without. So here again cold is within and cold is without. So both places are cold, and that is the significance over here. It is a nipping and an eager air. So Horatio says that yes, it's an eager air. It wants you to say things, and it wants you to come out with the truth. What are now, Hamlet says, Horatio? I think it lacks of 12. So Hamlet, no, it is struck. He says that no, it is become 12 o'clock now. Horatio: indeed I hear it not, then it draws near the season wherein the spirit held his wont to walk. He says that I hope the spirit comes up. A flourish of trumpets and ordnance shot off within. What does this mean, my lord? He says that what is going on, Hamlet? The king doth wake tonight and take his rouse, keeps vessel and the swaggering up spring reels, and as he drains his draught of Rhenish down, the kettle, drum and trumpet thus bray out the triumph of his pledge. So he says that let's see what goes on and how things are taking their turn. Horatio: is it a custom? He says, yes, it is a custom. Aye, marry, is it? But to my mind, though I am native here and to the manner born, it is a custom, more honoured in the breach than the observance. This heavy-headed revel east and west makes us traduced and taxed of other nations. They clapped us drunkards, and with swinish phrase swile our edition, and indeed it takes from our achievements, though performs at height. the pith and marrow of our attribute. So a very long speech again, and he says that we are honorable people and we should be able to stand on our own footings. So oft it chances in particular men that for some vicious mole of nature in them, as in their birth wherein they are not guilty, since nature cannot choose his origin. So he says that there is a tragic flaw in every individual, every human being, and it is a guilt which is there. So he's concerned about his father's death and the nature of Claudius, who has now become the king. So both these individuals have some kind of a tragic flaw in them. So we are very much concerned with the psychological aspects of Hamlet's thinking, because he says that there is no person on this earth who is not a very a very clean person. Every individual has some kind of a flaw in him or her, and that is the flaw which we become concerned with when the tragedy arises. So oft breaking down the pales and forth of reason, or by some habit that thou must overleavens, the form of plosive manners that these men carry, I say, the stamp of one defeat, being nature's livery or fortune's star. Their virtue else be, they are pure as grace, as infinite as man may undergo. Shall in the general censure take corruption, from that particular fault the dram of ale doth all the noble substance of a doubt to his own scandal. He says that evil reveals itself one way or the other, and no man is devoid of flaws, of misgivings and misdoings. Horatio, look, my lord, it comes. Enters the ghost. So the ghost is here. Hamlet, angels and ministers of grace defend us. Be thou a spirit of health or goblin damned, bring with thee airs from heavens or blast from hell. Be thy intents wicked or charitable. He says that he is addressing the ghost, that whoever you are, whether you are a good ghost or a bad ghost, we don't know. But we don't know whether you come from heaven or whether you come from hell. Thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee. I'll call thee Hamlet, king, father, royal Dane. Oh, answer me. So Hamlet is very bold about seeing the ghost in an armor, and he says that you must answer me, you must talk to me, and whether you are, we don't know whether you are a good ghost or a bad ghost, but the shape that you have taken is that of a person in armor. It means that you are not easy with yourself, you are not happy with the whole situation. Let me not burst in ignorance, but tell why they canonized bones, hushed in death, have burst their cements, why the speculars wherein we saw thee quite inert hath opted his ponderous and marble jaws to cast thee up again. What may this mean, that thou, dead corse, again in complete steel revisits thus the glimpses of the moon? He says that how can an individual come out of his grave? And I am sure if you are out, it means that you are very unhappy and uneasy. And you have been cemented, you have been marked, but your spirit is loitering about. And you must talk to me and you tell me your grievance. Making night hideous, and we fools of nature, so horridly to shake our disposition with thoughts beyond the reaches of our souls, say, why is this? Wherefore, what should we do? So he says that what is going on, and I am not sure about anything. So can you highlight me on this? Ghost beckons Hamlet. Horatio, it beckons you to go away with it, as if it's some impartment did desire to you alone. So the ghost makes an advancement towards Hamlet to go aside. Horatio catches this gesture, and he says that it says to Hamlet that the ghost is asking you to come on a side. It does not want to share the information with all of us, so he wants to talk to you alone. Marcellus, look with what courteous action it waves you to a more removed ground, but do not go with it. So Marcellus is concerned. He says, don't go away. Horatio, no, by no means. Hamlet, it will not speak, then I will follow it. He says, I must follow it. Horatio, do not, my lord. Hamlet, why? What should be the fear? I do not set my life in a pen's fee, and for my soul, what can I do to that? Being a thing immortal as itself, it waves me forth again, I'll follow it. He says, why shouldn't I follow it? So you see, Horatio and Marcellus are concerned for him. They care for him, and that is why they're saying that don't go if he is calling you. So the sincerity and the love of the people around him. Horatio, what if it tempts you towards the flood, my lord, or to the dreadful summit of the cliff that battles over his base into the sea, and there assumes some other horrible form? So he says that maybe this is not the actual ghost. So they are getting doubts and strange thoughts in their minds, and rightly so, because anything can happen, and that is how they are all taking care of each other. He says, what if it takes you to the cliff and you are thrown down and you are dead? And what if it is a bad spirit in the garb of King Hamlet? So what can we do? Or it may take a horrible form of a bad spirit and harm you, which might deprive your sovereignty of reason and draw you into madness. Think of it. The very place puts toys of desperation without more motive into every brain that looks so many fathoms to the sea and hears it roar beneath. So it says that don't go far away, and what if it says things to you which may drive you mad? So again, there is prophecy in these words, and you will see later on that Hamlet will deal with the situation in his own way. It waves me still, go on, I'll follow thee. Marcellus, you shall not go, my lord. Hamlet, hold off your hands. Horatio, we ruled you shall not go. So they are telling him not to go because they are not sure whether the spirit is good or bad. Hamlet, my fate cries out and makes each petty artery in this body as hardy as the neem lion's nerves. Still am I called. Unhand me, gentlemen. By heaven, I'll make a ghost of him that lets me. I say away, go on, I'll follow thee. Exeunt Ghost and Hamlet, they go away. Horatio, he waxes desperation with imagination. Marcellus, let's follow. It's not fit thus to obey him. He says we must follow him because he might be harmed. Horatio, have after, to what issue will this come? Marcellus, something is rotten in the state of Denmark. So lines, that something is not right in the state of Denmark. Horatio, heavens will direct it merciless. Nay, let's follow him, exclaimed. Scene 5, another part of the platform. Enter Ghost and Hamlet. Now the scene changes and Ghost and Hamlet come in. Hamlet, where wilt thou lead me? Speak, I'll go no further. Ghost, mark me. Hamlet, I will. Ghost, my hour is almost come when I to sulphurous and tormenting flames must render up myself. Hamlet, alas, poor Ghost. Ghost, pity me not, but lend thy serious hearing to what I shall unfold. The Ghost is saying, is now confiding in Hamlet and is saying that listen very carefully what I have to say. Speak, I am bound to hear. Hamlet says, Ghost, so art thou to revenge when thou shalt hear? Hamlet, what? Ghost, I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast and fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. But that I am forbid to tell the secrets of my prison house. I could a tale unfold whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood. He says there has been foul play in the state, and things are not quite right, and your blood will freeze after you hear this. Make thy two eyes like stars start from their spheres, thy knotted and combined locks to part, and each particular hair to stand on end, like quills upon the fretful porpentine. But this eternal blazon must not be to heirs of flesh and blood. List, list, O list, if thou didst ever thy dear father love. So this is here, he says, and he confirms that he has been killed. Hamlet, O God. Ghost, revenge is foul and most unnatural murder. So these are the actual exact lines which say that King Hamlet has been murdered and Hamlet the prince is supposed to take revenge. Hamlet, murder. Ghost, murder most foul, as in the best it is, but this most foul, strange and unnatural. Hamlet, haste me to nose that I, with wings as swift as meditation or the thoughts of love, may sweep to my revenge. So he says that, okay, I will take my revenge. The Ghost, I find thee apt. He says that I find you suitable. And duller shouldest thou be than the fat weed that roots itself in east on Leith wharf. Wouldst thou not stir in this? Now Hamlet here. Now here in these lines, what does it remind you of? Rank and gross and weed, all these things compared to a naturalness, and we go back to King Lear, in which there were comparisons of animals and weeds, and so they said that they were human beings were like animals. So here there is wrongdoing, foul play, and again weeds, and this, the moon and the sun and all these things are being sown upon. So I told you also earlier that whenever we discuss Shakespeare, we discuss his ideas, and we come to know, wherever we read his lines, we come to know that this is Shakespeare speaking. So that is very, very amazing. Wouldst thou not stir in this? Now Hamlet here, 'tis given out that, sleeping in my orchard, a serpent stung me, so the whole year of Denmark is by a forged process of my death, rankly abused. But no, thou noble youth, the serpent that did sting thy father's life, now wears his crown. So the truth has been told that when I was in my chamber, I was stung by the serpent, and that serpent was Claudius. Okay? So here the truth is revealed. There is a lot of interest developing in the play, and I'm sure the audiences would be very, very excited about a new invention in Shakespeare's play, which is the ghost who is revealing all these things. Here again I would give you a little bit of a comparison that in Macbeth there are the three witches who are making prophecies and who are, saying things about the future. So here is the ghost, the witches, the fairies, all these, the elves, in the Twelfth Night and all the other comedies of Shakespeare. So they are all amalgamated in Shakespeare's plays and ideas to give uniqueness, to give color, and to give life to his plays. These lines, "Oh, my prophetic soul, my uncle." So here we realize, we understand that whatever Hamlet was thinking was absolutely true. So he says that it is absolutely right that my uncle has made all these plans, and he has finally killed the king. Ghost, I, that incestuous, that adulterate beast, with witchcraft of his wit, with traitorous gifts, O wicked wit and gifts that have the power so to seduce one to his shameful lust, the will of my most seeming virtuous queen. Seeming virtuous queen. So here again, the ghost very honestly is saying that the brother of mine made advances towards the queen, and he gave her gifts, and with amazing witchcraft. So very cunning, very cruel of Claudius to take the life of his own brother and then to marry his sister-in-law. So what a horrible deed. And King Hamlet must have been really very heartbroken, very unhappy to see all these things. And then in the end he meets his death. O Hamlet, what a falling off was there from me, whose love was of that dignity that it went hand in hand even with the vow I made to her in marriage, and to decline upon a wretch whose natural gifts were poor to those of mine. So the ghost is now sharing his unhappiness, his grief with his son. And he says that I gave her more, and how could she go away from me? So he is blaming both his brother and his wife as well. And to decline upon a wretch whose natural gifts was poor to those of mine. But virtue, as it never will be moved, thou lewdness coat it in a shape of heaven, so lust, though to a radiant angel linked, will sate itself in a celestial bed, and prey on garbage. But soft me think, I scent the morning air, brief let me be, sleeping within my orchid, my custom always of the afternoon. Upon my secure hour thy uncle stole, with juice of cursed Habanon in a vial, and in the porches of my ears did pour the leprous distilment, whose effect holds such an enmity with blood of man, that swift as quicksilver it courses through. So it says that as I was resting, poison was put into my ears and it affected me and I was killed. So I was not killed in war. I was killed lying in my bed when I was asleep. The natural gates and allies of the body, and with a sudden vigor doth possess, and curd like eager dropping into milk, the thin and wholesome blood. So he says that like in milk, if you put lemon, it curdles. So that is how the poison was put into King Hamlet's blood, and it got thick. So when it thickens, it does not reach the heart, and the heart stops beating and an individual dies. So that is what happened. So did it mine. And a most instant tetter barked upon, most laser-like, with vile and loathsome crust, all my smooth body. So he says that that is how I reached my horrible, torturous end. And he says that I must go away quickly because I must tell you all these things very, very quickly. Dawn is about to arrive, and these are the situations which happened with me. Thus was I sleeping by a brother's hand of life, of crown, of queen, at once dispatched. So he says, this is what happened. My queen, my crown, and my life, all three were taken from me in a second, in a minute. Cut off even in the blossoms of my sin, unhoused, disappointed, unenailed, no reckoning made but sent to my account, with all my imperfections on my head. O horrible, most horrible. If thou hast nature in thee, bear it not. Let not the royal bed of Denmark be a couch for luxury and damned incest. So the theme of incest is continuously lurking about the play, and he says that the state of Denmark was pure and ruled by a very, very good governor, but now it has been ruled, it is now being ruled by people who have their own interest at hand, who are not concerned with the welfare of the people around them, but they are very shallow people. They are incestuous, they don't know the morality, they do not have any moral values, and he fears that the state of Denmark will experience all these things, and it will go down. There's going to be a lot of unhappiness among the people if this is the state of affairs. So here we do understand that good deeds always stand out, और जो कुछ भी चीज़ आप गलत करते हैं अपनी लाइफ में वो आपके सामने ज़रूर आती है, और यही सारी चीज़ इस प्ले में भी हुई कि क्लॉडियस और गर्ट्रूड के एब्रप्ट एक्शंस ने लोगों को डाउटफुल कर दिया, और अगर आपके किंग्स, आपके रूलर्स इमोरल हों, उनके अंदर रिलेशनशिप्स की वैल्यूज़ ना हो, वो एक दूसरे की केयर ना करें, तो फिर वो अपने किस तरह से ट्रूथफुली गवर्न कर सकते हैं. इट मीन्स दैट देयर इज़ गोइंग टू बी a lot of dangerous grounds to be sought after. So Denmark is going down in morality because उसके rulers जो हैं वो ही immoral हैं, और उनका एक they are murderous and they are incestuous, and all these things will lead Denmark to its downfall. So that is what they are saying. But howsoever thou pursuest this act, taint not thy mind, nor let thy soul contrive against thy mother aught. Leave her to heaven, and to those throngs that in her bosom lodge, to prick and sting her. Here again, ये बहुत ही थॉट प्रोवोकिंग लाइन्स हैं. इसमें वो अपने बेटे से ये रिक्वेस्ट करता है कि डोंट से एनीथिंग टू योर मदर, लीव हर डूइंग्स टू हेवंस. So he says that don't harm her. He still has love, care and affection for his wife. So very sad but very genuine, very true in his love for his wife. He says कि उसको harm ना करना, उसे कोई दुख ना पहुंचाना, और उसका जो डीलिंग्स हैं वो तुम लीव इट टू गॉड, वो तुम हेवंस पे छोड़ दो, वो तुम अल्लाह पे छोड़ दो. एंड this is what my advice is to you. So the ghost has come and he is saying truthful things. He is saying that this is what has happened, और ये सब चीज़ें जो हैं ये हमारा जो है वो greatest concern है. Fare thee well at once. The glowworm shows the matin to be near, and gins to pale his uneffectual fire. Adieu, adieu, Hamlet, remember me. So very sadly, the ghost goes away, telling Hamlet about his death, his unnatural death, and advising him not to say anything to his mother. It exists, Hamlet. O all you most host of heaven, O earth, what else? And shall I couple hell? O fie, hold my heart. Now very effective, very strong lines and very emotionally said by Hamlet. And when hopefully we will watch the play, we will understand what it is all about. And he says, and you, my sinews, grow not instant old, but bear me stiffly up, remember thee. I, the poor ghost, whilst memory holds a seat, in this distracted globe remember thee. He says that I should take hold of my senses and be very mature in saying what I should be doing now. Yea, from the table of my memory, I'll wipe away all trivial fond records, all saws of books, all forms, all pressures past, that youth and observation copied there, and thy commandment all alone shall live within the book and volume of my brain, unmixed with baser matter, yes, by heaven. So now here, he says that there is a very bigger job at my hand. I will not think of any smaller issues. Like for example, here he could be, talking about Ophelia, and he could be referring to her that she is of a very small concern to me now. What has been revealed to me by the ghost is of much greater importance. और ये चीज़ जो है वो मेरे लिए ज़्यादा कंसर्न है, और मैं छोटी छोटी बातों को अटेंशन नहीं दूंगा. My focus should be on the bigger issue. Within the book and volume of my brain, unmixed with baser matter, yes, by heaven, O most pernicious woman. Again, he is swearing, he is cursing himself, he is cursing his mother, he is unable to forgive her. And even before the ghost arrives, we saw that he was so much concerned about the behavior of his mother, and he was very, very upset why she has, made such a decision and left my father and married my uncle. Pernicious woman, he calls that his mother. O villain, villain, smiling, damned villain. Now here, as we read earlier, frailty, thy name is woman. Here, when he starts doubting his mother, he loses all kind of love and care for any kind of woman in his life. So this goes for Ophelia as well. He says that if my mother can be so insincere with my father, then no woman can be sincere with any man on this earth. So here is what, basically he is aiming at. He is disgusted with all womankind, and he says that damn them, they smile, and you become foolish in their hands, you play in their hands, and you do not know what is going on in their minds. So he is completely lost, and he will never ever trust any woman in his life. So what a great harm to an individual's, to a human being's psyche has taken place over here. My table's meat this is, I set it down, that one may smile and be a villain. At least I am sure it may be so in Denmark. These lines are very important, and he says that a person can smile and be a villain inside, be such a hypocrite that you are somebody else on the surface, and you are somebody else under it. So the dichotomy of deeds is confusing Hamlet. His love for Ophelia must have been very, very genuine, but how now he is not able to trust any woman. And he says that it must be so in Denmark. Maybe in some other country or in some other world, women are honest and fidel to their men. But here I haven't seen any fidelity thanks to my mother. So he says now the confusion is in his mind. He's torn apart, and he must go on towards his duty, take his revenge, and should not, say anything to his mother. So you see, if a person has to hide such a big truth, see how उसका जो दिल है उसके ऊपर कितना बड़ा बोझ होगा कि वो इतनी बड़ी बात, इतनी important चीज़ें किसी से शेयर ना कर सके. He could have gone straight to King Claudius and Gertrude and told them that I know everything, and my father's ghost told me everything, you poisoned him, and you are the woman who should never be trusted because you partied with Claudius to get rid of my father, and you have married my uncle in a haste, in such a quick decision. So everything is going against you. He can go ahead and say all these things, but he will not say it, and that is what will break him inside. ये सब चीज़ें आपके psyche को बहुत ज़्यादा hurt करती हैं. So if you are not able to share anything with anyone, and don't give, he will have to pretend that everything is okay, whereas nothing is okay in the state of Denmark. And जिसको उसने सबसे ज़्यादा trust किया, अपनी mother को closest समझा, she has turned out to be the villain, and a party in the murder of King Hamlet. Writing, so uncle, there you are, now to my word. It is adieu, adieu, remember me. I have sawn it. He says, okay, uncle, now it is your turn. You will be killed. Merciless Horatio within, my lord, merciless within, Lord Hamlet. Horatio, heaven secure him. Hamlet, so be it. Horatio, hello, ho ho, my lord. So they are asking for him, they are saying him to come back, and they are very much concerned that hopefully the ghost is a good spirit and has not harmed him. Hello, ho ho, boy, come bird, come. Enter Horatio and Marcellus. How's it, my lord? What news, my lord? Hamlet says, oh, wonderful. Horatio, good, my lord, tell it. Hamlet, no, you will reveal it. Horatio, not I, my lord, by heaven. He says that, oh, I cannot trust you. Marcellus, nor I, my lord. Hamlet, Hamlet, how say you then would hear heart of man once think it, but you will be secret. He says that, cross your heart and promise me that you will be secret. Horatio, Marcellus, I by heaven, my lord. Hamlet, there is never a villain dwelt in all Denmark, but he is an arrant knave. Horatio, there needs no ghost, my lord, come from the grave to tell us this. Horatio is very, very, practical in his wordings. He says that, yes, there is foul play, there is a villain lurking in Denmark. So we know all this already. What are you telling us? Hamlet, by right you are in the right, and so without more circumstance at all, I hold it fit that we shake hands and part. You, as your business and desire shall point you, for every man has business and desire, such as it is, and for mine own poor part, look you, I'll go pray. He only says that there is something wrong, and I cannot say anymore, so you go your way and I'll go mine. Horatio, these are but wild and whirling words, my lord. Horatio says that, telling all. So he understands his friend, और बहुत ही sweetly वो उसको कहता है कि तुम मुझे सारी बात नहीं बता रहे हो. There is more to it. And Hamlet says, I'm sorry they offend you heartily. Yes, faith, heartily. He says, have faith. Horatio, there's no offense, my lord. Hamlet, yes, by Saint Patrick. But there is, Horatio, and much offense too. Touching this vision here, it is an honest ghost that let me tell you. For your desire to know what is between us, overmaster it as you may, and now, good friends, as you are friends, scholars and soldiers, give me one poor request. What is it, my lord? We will. Never make known what you have seen tonight. So he promises, takes an oath from them, a promise that you should not make it known what I have seen tonight. Horatio, my lord, we will not. Hamlet, nay, but swear. Horatio, in faith. My lord, not I. Marcellus, nor I, my lord, in faith. Hamlet, upon my sword. Marcellus, we have sown, my lord, already. Hamlet, indeed, upon my sword, indeed. Ghost. Hamlet, ah, hey boy, sayest thou so? Art thou here? True, Penny, come on. You heard this fellow in the cellarage. Consent to swear. Horatio proposes the oath, my lord. Never to speak of this that you have seen, swear by my sword. Ghost, beneath there. Hamlet, then we will shift our ground. Come hither, gentlemen, and lay your hands upon my sword. Never to speak of this that you have heard, swear by my sword. Ghost swears. Hamlet, well said. Old mole can't work the earth so fast, a worthy pioneer. Once more remove good friends. O day and night, but this is wondrous, strange. Hamlet. And therefore, as a stranger, give it welcome. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. But come here as before, never, so help your mercy. How strange or odd soever I bear myself. As I perchance hereafter shall think meet to put an antic disposition on. So this is what he is sharing with Horatio, that I am going to appear mad, and that is my scheme, my plot for reaching the truth. That you at such times seeming me never shall with arms encumbered thus or this head shake, or by pronouncing of some doubtful phrase, as well we know or we could as if we would, or if we list to speak or there be as if they might, or such ambiguous giving out to note, that you know aught of me this not to do, so grace and mercy at your most need help you swear. So swear. Rest, perturbed spirit. He says that the spirit should rest, because now I am going to take things in my hand and I am going to get to the root of these things. This way. Go, gentlemen. So, gentlemen, with all my love I do commend me to you, and what so poor a man as Hamlet is may do to express his love and friending to you, God willing shall not lack. Let us go in together, and still your fingers on thy lips. I pray the time is out of joint. O cursed spite, that ever I was born to see it, set it right. Nay, come, let's go together. So here, these two lines are very, very important. The time is out of joint. He says that the times have gone wrong. ये सारी situation जो है वो खराब हो चुकी है. O cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right. He says that such a big, a burden on my shoulder, and such a big duty on me to put Denmark's situation right. So here again, perhaps Hamlet did not expect to be doing such a humongous job. इतना बड़ा काम Hamlet अकेले कैसे करेगा, और वो किस तरह इतने कनाइविंग और स्कीमिंग लोगों के दरमियान रह के अपना रिवेंज ले सकेगा. So he is thoughtful about his own self, and he is thoughtful about what should be done. Nay, come, let's go together. He has his friends at hand, but there are things which he should be able to do secretly, and it's a very, very big job that he will be doing now. Act 3. Act 2, Scene 1, a room in Polonius's house. Enter Polonius and Rinaldo, Lord Polonius. Give him this money and these notes, Rinaldo. I will, my lord. So again, there are things which are going on. Lord Polonius, and impart him, but you may say not well, but if he be, I mean he is very wild, addicted so, and there put on him what for gains you please, marry none so rank as my dishonor him. Take heed of that, but sir, such wanton, wild and usual slips as our companions noted and most known to youth and liberty. So he says that you take this money and take care of my son. As gaming, my lord? Lord Polonius, aye, or drinking, fencing, swearing, quarrelling, drabbing, you may go so far. Rinaldo, my lord, that would dishonor him. Lord Polonius, faith, no. As you may season it in the charge, you must not put another scandal on him, that he is open to incontinency. That's not my meaning, but prate his faults so quaintly, that they may seem the taint of liberty, the flash, an outbreak of a fiery mind, a savageness in unreclaimed blood, of general assault. Rinaldo, but my good lord. So here Polonius has two concerns, one concern of his son and the other concern of Prince Hamlet. Very genuine in his feelings for both of them. He considers Hamlet as his son as well, and he says that I take care of him, but he has changed, and his that earlier Hamlet said that he is going to feign madness, so he's going to pretend that he has become mad. So there are the currents coming up, and Polonius is doubtful of Hamlet's structure, Hamlet's way of behavior, and he says that there is something quite wrong with him. His mind is not okay. Why? Because he may say that Polonius thinks he does not know anything about the ghost. So he thinks that he has taken so much of depression at his father's death that it has affected his brain. And of course he is concerned with his son also, that his son should be able to behave maturely and properly because he is out of his sight. Wherefore should you do this? I, my lord, I would know that. Lord Polonius, marry sir, here's my drift. So again they are both talking, and we will, I hope that you will be able to follow these lines on your own. और जैसा मैंने आपको पहले कहा कि you may have those critical studies which are available, and they will give you a good outlook, good helping knowledge of Shakespeare's plays. They have words meanings, they have translations of modern English language, so they will be of use to you as well. I've tried to go word by word till just to give you the outlines, और उसके बाद फिर आपको on your own थोड़ी सी मेहनत करनी होगी और आपको इसको आगे लेके चलना होगा. Enters Ophelia. How now, Ophelia, what's the matter? Ophelia, oh my lord, I have seen so affrighted. With what? 'Tis the name of God. Ophelia, my lord, as I was sewing in my closet, Lord Hamlet, with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stocking fouled, ungartered, and down gate to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, and with a look so piteous in purport, as if he had been loosed out of hell to speak of horrors, he comes before me. So Ophelia comes in and tells her father that Hamlet is not in his senses. Lord Polonius, mad for thy love? Ophelia, my lord, I do not know, but truly I do fear it. Polonius says, probably he has gone mad for because he is so much in love with you. So she says, I don't know, Lord Polonius. What said he? Ophelia, he took me by the wrist and held me hard, then goes he to the length of his arm, and with his other hand thus over his brow, he falls to such perusal of my face as he would draw it, long stayed he so. Now you see a very, very touching action of Hamlet. He is in love, genuinely, purely in love with Ophelia, and he goes to her and he starts looking at her face, trying to find out the true nature of her being. Because as far as he knows, the innocent face of his mother has destroyed his father, has been conniving against him behind his back, having an affair with the brother of her husband. So things are not quite right. So the first thing Hamlet thinks of is frailty. Thy name is woman. And in it, if he is not trusting his mother, if his mother has proved to be so shallow and such a serpent, then no woman is to be trusted. And that is why he goes to Ophelia and looks so hard on her face, trying to look into her soul, whether it is pure for his love or not. So very rightly so, because he is doubting every woman, and he has all the reason to do so. So she continues telling her father, at last a little shaking of mine arm, and thrice his head thus waving up and down, he raised a sigh so piteous and profound, as it did seem so shatter all his bulk, and end his being. That done, he lets me go, and with his head over his shoulder turned, he seemed to find his way without his eyes, for out over doors he went without their helps, and to the last bended their light on me. So this is what Hamlet has done. He has shown his doubts for Ophelia also. He is not trusting anyone now, least of all any woman. Lord Polonius, come go with me, I will go seek the king. This is the very ecstasy of love, whose violent property for does itself and leads the way to desperate undertakings, and oft as my passion under heaven, that does afflict our nature. I am sorry. What have you given him? Any hard words of late? So Polonius is genuinely thinking that Hamlet is so much in love with Ophelia that he has lost his senses. That is not the case. Hamlet is very much sane, very much under control of his disposition, and he is pretending. But we might think that in looking hard at Ophelia's face, he is trying to know the truth, whether she is genuine to him, with him or not, and or she is also the same as his mother. So there are two meanings, double meanings in these wordings. So he says that Lord Polonius says that let's go to the king and tell him everything. Ophelia, no, my good lord, but as you did command, I did repel his fetters and denied his access to me. So here. Polonius says, did you say something harsh to him? And that is why he is so angered and unhappy with you? Ophelia says that, yes, I took your advice and I stayed away from him. Lord Polonius, that hath made him mad. So here again we see that Polonius is misled by his own ideas, and that is not the case. And the case is something else. I'm sorry that with better heed and judgment I had not quoted him. I feared he did but trifle, and mean to wreck thee, but besought my jealousy. By heaven, it is as proper to our age to cast beyond ourselves in our opinions. So he says that maybe I was wrong in saying all this. Maybe he is genuinely in love with you. To lack discretion, come, go we to the king. This must be known, which, being kept close, might move. More grief to hide than hate to utter love. They exit. Scene 2, a room in the castle. King Claudius, Queen Gertrude, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern and attendants. King Claudius. Welcome, dear Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Moreover, that we much did long to see you, the need we have to use you did provoke our hasty sending. So he has sent for the soldiers. Something have you heard of Hamlet's transformation? So call it. Is it not the exterior nor the inward man resembling that it was? What it should be? More than his father's death, that thus hath put him so much from the understanding of himself, I cannot dream of. I entreat you both, that being of so young days brought up with him, and sit so neighbored to his youth and heavier, that you vouchsafe you rest here in our court some little time, so by your companies to draw him on to pleasure, and to gather so much as from occasion you may glean, whether aught to us unknown afflict him thus, that opened lies within our remedy. So he says that observe Hamlet, what he is up to. Again here, the very idea that Claudius and Gertrude both are concerned with Hamlet's appearance, and they want to keep him with himself because they don't want anyone to come in the discretions of Hamlet's disposition, and they want to observe him, so that they are sure that their plan and their foul play is not discovered by him. So that is what we discuss here. Queen Gertrude, good gentleman, he hath much talked of you, and sure I am 2 men there are not living to whom he more adheres, if it will please you to show us so much entry and goodwill as to expend your time with us a while. For the supply and profit of our hope, your visitation shall receive such thanks as fits a king's remembrance. So he says that you have come, you have visited us, be with Hamlet, be close to him, and bring him back, because he is now too much under a depression. So here we stop. We now the plot is building up, and we will hopefully in the next lectures finish Hamlet's text. I hope you are enjoying it too, and you're reading it on your own as well, because this distant learning is a little difficult. इसमें आपको काफ़ी सारी मेहनत करनी है खुद से, और जहाँ तक हम आपको facilitate कर सके, we are doing it. We are doing our best. We are trying our best. So see you inshallah in the next lecture. Take care. Allah Hafiz.